Hello fellow artists, my name is Santiago and welcome to another video about drawing the eyes. This time, I want to show you some simplified anatomy studies and drawing tips I use to draw the eyes from different angles. Also, this video is a continuation of my previous video about the structure of the eye. So, if you haven't watched it, please take a look at it to make a better use of these drawing tips. Now, let's get started. I think one of the most common mistakes we make when drawing eyes is to place them like stickers on top of a 2D plane and then just apply some perspective to that plane. This result is actually very unrealistic, and it doesn't take into account the spherical form of the eyes. Also, if you draw the eyes like this, there is no transition between a 3/4 view of the eyes and a side view. If you keep increasing the perspective, the eyes will just become a thin line. However, taking the spherical form of the eyes into account is not so easy. This is because most of the time, each eye will actually look different from the other. So let's go one step at a time to make it simple. To simplify the spherical form, let's take the external surface of the eye and divide it into 3 planes: an outer plane, a front plane, and an inner plane, where the tear duct is located. Now, imagine we look at these 3 planes completely from above. The end of the inner plane, or the tear duct, is a little closer to the front plane than the end of the outer plane. To draw the eyes in perspective, it is really important to take these angles into account. Now, let's begin with the 3/4 view. This view can be confusing. Because of the perspective, each eye will change in a different way in comparison to the front view. If we use realistic proportions, we know the distance between the 2 eyes is about equal to the width of one eye. So we have 3 equal sections for the eyes. When we draw them in perspective, the first thing we have to make sure of is that, as they go away from us, each of these sections will become a little smaller than the previous one. Now, let's study the form of the eye that's closer to us. See how in the 3/4 view, the first section keeps almost the same width as in the front view. If the eyeball was a plane surface, it would immediately look much narrower when you rotate it for the 3/4 view. But the eyeball is a ball, and when you rotate a ball, it keeps the exact same width. In this case, even if you can only see one part of the eyeball from the outside, in the 3/4 view, the eye will still keep most of the width it had in the front view. Remember the 3 planes of the external surface of the eye? If we draw them in perspective, we will see how the outer plane, the one that's closer to us, looks wider than in the front view. The front plane becomes a little smaller, and the inner plane, on the opposite side, becomes even smaller, but still visible. It is actually because this plane is a little closer to the front of the eye than the outer plane, that even if we increase the perspective, a very small part of the tear duct will still be visible, until a little before getting to the side view, when we are finally unable to see the tear duct and the inner plane at all. Now, for the eye that's away from us, on the other side of the nose, the opposite thing happens. The inner plane with the tear duct is closer to us and looks wider than in the front view. The front plane looks a little smaller, but the outer plane is almost completely out of sight. Because of the spherical shape of the eye, the front plane is covering it almost entirely. We can draw that border of the eye with a curved line to show the spherical surface of the eyeball. See how different this is from the sticker eye we saw at the beginning of this video. Following these quick tips is a very easy approach to take the spherical form of the eye into account. Now, let's go to the side view. Here, we can only see the outer plane of the eye, and a very little part of the front plane. Just like in the previous example, it is important to show the rounded border of the eyeball. Also, see how the upper and lower lids almost become straight lines. Finally, to draw the eyes from above or from below, in both the upper and lower views of the eye, we can see how the tear duct is closer to the front plane than the opposite corner. We also need to pay attention to the height of the eye, and the distance between the eye and the eyebrow. As you can see, the eye becomes narrower in both the upper and lower views. However, the distance between the eye and the eyebrow gets smaller in the upper view and will eventually disappear as we approach a complete top view, where the eyebrow will cover the eye entirely. On the contrary, this distance between the eye and the eyebrow will increase a little in the lower view. We now have a more frontal view of this area, which was actually in perspective in the front view. One last thing to take into account when drawing the eyes in this kind of perspective is to pay attention to the lines of the upper and lower lids. Because of the spherical form of the eye, in the lower and upper views, the curve of the border that's closer to us will be less pronounced than the curve of the border that's away from us. And in extreme angles, both curve lines will also be in the same direction. And this was the second video of this series about the eyes. If you're trying to develop a 3-dimensional understanding of your drawings, I will leave a link in the comments below to a series of videos showing my best exercises to understand form. Also, you can watch another drawing video, and please consider subscribing to this channel, as I will be making more videos about drawing the eyebrows, the eyelashes, painting the eyes, and many more things. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.